Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me. We are waiting just 2 minutes for starting at 10 sharp because we are waiting for a significant number of participants, and but still we really want to start on time, so we go directly to the key messages of this webinar. And thanks for joining. Hello, good morning, everyone. We really would like to welcome you to the second CCRI CSO webinar, and this webinar is really on the new Horizon Europe calls for circular economy at the local and regional scales. My name is Andrea Correggi. I'm project manager of the CCRI Coordination Support Office, and I play the role of moderator of this webinar today. But first of all, really thank you for joining this webinar. We are expecting a quite significant number of participants, but still we really want to start at 10. So if you don't mind, we go directly to the webinar, to the start of the webinar. Maybe just a logistical information. We decided to extend of 15 minutes the initial 2 hours of the webinar, with the scope to give you more time for eventual question and any inputs from your side. So thank you for your flexibility. Anyway, if you don't have time to stay with us until 12:15, well, we definitely you have the possibility to then see again. This webinar is going to be recorded. If I may start basically with some, let's say, rules of this webinar. Participant cameras and microphone have been turned off by default. Again, we are many people, so in order to make the webinar understandable and manageable, that's a little bit the rule. Of course, we welcome your question and comments. That's the webinar for this. But at the same time, we kindly ask you to do not raise your virtual hand. Instead, you can use the chat for question. We pick up this question and we send it and we address it to the speaker or to the moderator itself. Again, we are very welcome your reflection and question. In case of technical problem, you can send a message in the chat or an email to the following email that my colleague Linnea just included. Thank you. And the meeting will be, as I said, recorded. So for those who wish to stay anonymous, please keep posting questions in the chat and keep your camera and microphone off. I would say let's go now directly to the webinar. With the next slide, please. Thanks. So let's make clear what is the scope of this webinar. Scope number 1 is just presenting Horizon Europe calls, the new one, calls for proposals on circular economy at local regional scale. So this focus is definitely the focus of the CCRI, but also is a way to present as much as possible clear information, especially for local and regional authorities and project promoters, to apply correctly to these calls. And these are definitely actors that are crucial for the implementation of Circular Cities and Regions initiative. Therefore, we really want to facilitate with this webinar that everyone can apply and can really express their interest and their capacity to hopefully succeed in the application. If I may say the next slide. That's a little bit the structure of the webinar. The agenda is, if you can see, is quite structured in a way that we present at the beginning from the GRTD, Annika Escusson from the Commission, the calls which are somehow relevant for circular economy at local and regional scale. Then Davide from the European Research and Executive Agency is presenting the rules to apply to Horizon Europe calls for proposal, with I would say with a specific focus on how a local and regional authority, local and regional project promoter can apply. And then I would say there are three very interesting presentations because are the case studies, we call them like this. So the correct and real experience of a city, of one national contact point for Horizon, explaining a couple of case studies in Spain on how these case studies apply as local and regional authority to Horizon Europe calls. And last but not least, one successful application that today we can define as one of the CCRI projects, which is called Project Resource, and is part of Horizon Europe project and is very connected, well connected with the CCRI, and is one of the most important demonstration projects in the Galassia of the CCRI. From Milan, we have Cristina Sasson. From the Centro para el Desarrollo Tecnológico y la Innovación Nacional, we have Lidia González Fernández. And from the CCRI project, Anna Eunen Nunca, I hope I pronounced correctly your name. Thank you. If we may go to the next slide. Yeah, that's a little bit of refresh. So what is the CCRI? Here we have a sort of graphical representation. The CCRI is born as a collaboration support scheme, but also as a, let's say, a supporting scheme to really push, to really support the implementation of a circular economy at the local and regional scale. That's really the main scope of existence of the CCRI. And the CCRI is if you see these two objectives, collaboration and support scheme. Why is collaboration? Because basically you see many actors, many stakeholders participating to the scheme with a specific role. First of all, of course, is something under the European Commission, launched and financed and managed by the European Commission, especially the Director General for Research and Innovation. If you see in the center, on purpose, we include the cities, region, territorial clusters. So that's really the main focus of the initiative, helping this actor, crucial actor for a circular economy in the implementation of what we call circular systemic solution. So basically, action project measure at the local and regional scale, really useful for the implementation of the circular economy. If we want to summarize the four roles and services of the CCRI are, first of all, cooperation support, technical support, financial support, and dissemination support. Now, the European Commission, of course, is really focused on this cooperation support. Is also the public institution providing through Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe significant resources, financial resources for the implementation of this initiative. Technical support, well, there are many actors doing this. We have the technical support provided by the Coordination Support Office, but also by the associated partner projects, basically project under Horizon and associated partner entities, institutions, foundations operating the circular economy at local and regional scale, but providing this technical support to cities, region, and territorial cluster. Last but not least, dissemination. So what we are going to work on in terms of circular systemic solution, what we are going to learn from this laboratory that we are creating with the CCRI, definitely we want and we need to disseminate as much as possible. So that's the reason why the CCRI is focused also on this. There is a CCRI website that is constantly updated. You can see a quite nice version already today, and we will send you, of course, the link to the website. So that's a little bit the scheme. Now, with the next slide, let's go back to 3 key messages for this webinar. We said that this webinar is really a sort of training, right, for those that are interested as a city, as a region, as a territorial cluster to apply to Horizon. And we did a sort of a mini survey at the beginning of the registration, and thank you for those that really participated to this survey. And it's very interesting to say also in the public, we have the majority of you, which seems to be quite familiar with Horizon and even managed to be successful to this course. So that's very, very interesting, but it's also interesting to see that still a significant part of participants here, they didn't manage to succeed. And that's the webinar is for both of you. So for those who can increase their capacity for a better application, but also for those who want maybe to have more chance to succeed in terms of like a little bit, we hope to provide you with a little bit of knowledge to be hopefully successful with these calls. The other slide, please. And then we ask, what are the main reasons for your success in this application? And it's quite interesting to say that if you see the first and second reason, strong consortium and good quality proposal, that's exactly what we want to facilitate with this webinar. So we don't pretend, of course, to make everyone expert of Horizon in 2 hours, but at least to give you a couple of inputs that you might want to use, you might want to consider, hopefully to increase really the possibility to have a strong consortium and a good quality proposal. And the last slide from my side. That's a little bit the opposite question. So what are the main reasons that you were not, for those you were not successful? And you say also here, particularly the first reply is limited experience in applied to Horizon calls for proposal. And then again, one of the scope of this webinar is really to provide you as much as possible with information to bridge, sorry, this gap. So if possible now, I would definitely leave the floor to the most important people here, the speaker, and starting basically with the European Commission, this is DG RTD, Annika, hello Annika, that you're going to present us basically the most important calls for in the context of CCRI in the new work program of Horizon Europe. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today to speak about the new research and innovation funding opportunities under Horizon Europe. It's a good moment to talk about it as the work programs for the period of 2023 and 2024 were published last week on 6th of December, and there are many calls for proposals that support circular economy, also at the local and regional level, that will open next week on 22nd of December. So in my presentation, I will give you an overview of the different topics that are relevant for CCRI stakeholders, but I also invite you to look at the work program documents for further details. In my first slide, you can see the whole structure of Horizon Europe. It's in the next slide. Yes, thank you. It's mainly in 2 clusters, Cluster 4 and Cluster 6, that address circular economy related research innovation. So Cluster 4, Digital Industry and Space, deals more with industrial and technological perspective. But in my presentation, I mainly focus on Cluster 6, called Food, Bioeconomy, Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Environment, as this is the one that brings together different CCRI relevant calls, even CCRI label calls, and it covers a more systemic approach to circular economy, going across sectors and covering the whole value chain. In the next slide, you can see how the Cluster 6 work program is structured. It's structured around destination, and it's destination 3 called Circular Economy and Bioeconomy sectors that is most relevant for CCRI stakeholders. It has quite a significant budget of more than 300 million euros for the next 2 years. In the next slide, you see an overview of the three most important or relevant calls in the context of CCRI. They're all topics that are under the CCRI umbrella and where future CCRI project will come out of. You can also already recognize it from the titles. They're labeled CCRI and they focus on circular economy in cities and regions. The table also shows what is the type of action, what is the size of the budget, what is the number of projects, and when is the application period open. So here you have a summary of these different details, but in my presentation, I highlight topics from the 2023 call, which has topics that will open for applications next week and which remain open until spring next year, depending on the call. But I'm also indicating relevant topics that will open in autumn 23 because it's good to be aware of them already now, and that will allow a bit more long-term preparation for interested applicants. So the first two topics are the most relevant to pay attention to now because of the opening dates. The first one is called CCRI Circular Systemic Solutions. It's a large-scale innovation action that's about demonstrating circular systemic solution. The focus here is really on the implementation and the systemic nature, bringing together all relevant stakeholders, including local and regional authorities. So this could be very interesting for possible CCRI pilots and fellows in other cities and regions, even though it's an open topic and it's not particularly targeting specific cities and regions. There's a budget of 58 million euros, which allows funding for around 6 projects. The second topic is a coordination support action with a budget of 2.5 million euros to fund one project. It's about bringing together different CCRI collaborating organizations. For example, these could be organizations like the Associated Partners or other organizations that provide technical support for circular economy at the local and regional level. Contributing to CCRI activities, complementing the services provided the CCRI Coordination Support Office. I have a few more details later on in my presentation about these two topics, but before I go there, let me mention some other relevant research innovation topics. So the third one is a topic that will open in October 23. It's a follow-up call to other CCRI project development assistance calls from 2021 and 2022. And this time we have a budget of 6 million euros for 3 projects. In the next slide, there is an overview of other different Cluster 6 calls that include cooperation with CCRI and that will also have future CCRI projects as they have local and regional dimension. And the first one is the only one from the 2023 call, and it focuses on circular model households. It's an innovation action for 18 million euros and 3 projects. And then there are 4 calls that will open in next year in October 23, but it's relevant to highlight as they deal with circular solutions for furniture, sustainable tourism, circular bioeconomy startup villages, and lastly, demonstrating sustainable management of nutrients. In the next slide, on the left side, you can see 2 bio-based topics from Cluster 6 that could be relevant. The first one is dealing with symbiosis in the bio-based industrial ecosystems. It's a coordination support action with a 3 million euro budget. And the second one is called Revitalization of European Local Communities with innovative bio-based business models and social innovation. This is a research and innovation action with a 5 million euro budget. And both calls will open next week as well. Then it's also relevant to look at other clusters or other parts of Horizon Europe. So in Cluster 4, there are particularly the topics from the Process for Planet Partnership that deal with hubs for circularity that could be interesting for you. There are 2 calls for innovation action with a budget of 40 million euros. The first one that's already launched and is open is hubs for circularity for heavy industrialized clusters and the surrounding ecosystems. And the second one for next year is about industrialized urban peripheral areas, which includes a reference to CCRI as well. Additionally, there is a work program for the Smart and Climate Neutral Cities mission. It has annual work programs, and there is one topic dealing with urban greening and renaturing for urban regeneration, resilience, and climate neutrality that could be relevant. This is also an innovation action with 40 million budget. And finally, there is some new calls coming in the Circle of Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking. They have their annual work program for 2023 published next week, 21st of December, and it will be open from April to September 2023. And those who don't know, it's a partnership between the European Commission and the bio-based industry, but it has a strong circularity dimension, and there will be some relevant funding also for local and regional authorities. In the next slides, I will give you more details about the 2 CCRI calls that I highlighted in the beginning. So this is the demonstration call with the 58 million funding, and you have all the details that I mentioned earlier as well about the opening dates and per project, the budget is around 9 to 10 million euros. What is also specific about innovation actions is that for beneficiaries, the funding rate is 70%. In the next slide, you see some elements of the expected outcomes and the policy context of the topic. So obviously it supports the European Green Deal, particularly the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, more specifically from its territorial dimension. There are several eligibility conditions, and most importantly, the projects must be part of the demonstration projects for the implementation of CCRI. And the main goal is to provide concrete and demonstrated examples of circular systemics for their replication and upscaling. Then there are several expected outcomes that proposals should contribute to, of course, increased circularity, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, valorization of local resources, creation of business opportunities and jobs, participation of citizens, enhanced knowledge transfer, and more widespread uptake, replication, scalability of circular innovation. And then in the orange box, you can see a related impact from the Destination 3 narrative. So Destination 3 has more than 30 topics, and there are around 6 broad expected impacts. So this box refers to one of the impacts of Destination 3. The next slide summarizes the main elements of the scope of the topic and what proposals should address. They should implement and demonstrate at large scale circular systemic solutions for the deployment of the circular economy in cities and regions or the groupings. Ideally, they would address more than one key product value chain, and they would address economic, social, and environmental dimensions of the transition. They should also demonstrate circular innovative technologies, but go beyond technological innovation and cover novel governance and business models. They should have active participation of all relevant actors in the ecosystem and have a high replicability and scalability potential. It's important to keep in mind also the several eligibility conditions that I mentioned in the beginning. There should be close coordination and cooperation with the CCRI office to ensure that knowledge and experience developed during the project will be broadly shared with the CCRI community and beyond. The project should participate in CCRI events and other relevant support activities and cooperate with other projects from similar past calls. In the next slide, This is the coordination support action, enhancing collaboration between CCRI supporting organizations. Here, the funding rate is 100%. In the next slide, you see that there are similar policy context, and the related impact is also a project under the CCRI umbrella. And the main expected outcomes is that it should have strengthened collaboration and complementarity between relevant initiatives and organizations that support circular economy at the local and regional scale, enhance their capacity to contribute to CCRI while avoiding overlaps and duplications in their activities. The second one is about enhancing support for the implementation of circular systemic solutions in cities and regions. And then also about increasing the capacity, efficiency of these organizations, enhancing knowledge transfer, and again, dissemination, uptake, replication of circular innovation. The next slide summarizes the main elements of the scope of the topic, as this project needs to work closely with the CCRI Coordination and Support Office. It's also under the CCRI umbrella to ensure that there's a coherent support scheme for cities and regions, and to work towards a shared goal. It should provide additional complementary technical support to local and regional initiatives. This could mean supporting additional cities and regions that are not part of the selected group of CCRI pilots or fellows, or bringing some additional expertise that's not yet covered by the CCRI office. There should be an exchange of knowledge, organization of events and trainings, development of case studies, guidance documents, policy recommendation, and promoting the concept of circular economy. And here also eligibility conditions require sharing knowledge and experiences with the CCRI office. It's important to specify how synergies and complementarities are ensured with other relevant projects and initiatives, and participation in CCRI events. And in my final slide, you see the relevant links to the work programs and the funding tenders portal, where you can find further details. And there's a link to the research inquiry service where you can submit questions. And as a final point, I covered in my presentation all the funding opportunities in Horizon Europe, but there are also other funding programs like LIFE. And also through the European Regional Development Fund, there's currently an open call through the European Urban Initiative, which focuses on the new European Bauhaus, but it has some circularity aspects in buildings and construction. So if that's something relevant for you, I invite you to have a look as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Really, I would say, clear and very useful presentations. And before addressing the question, and thank for this question, we suggest to proceed with the presentation of Davide from Area. The philosophy here is just giving all together the official messages from the institution and agency, and then we have time to address questions to both of the speakers together after Davide's presentation. So Davide, thank you, and the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrea. Hope you can hear me well. So good morning to everybody. I am Davide Daliti, and I'm a project officer at the Research Executive Agency from Unit Biodiversity, Circular Economy and Environment. In my next slide, you can see the outline. Next slide, yes, of my today presentation. So it will be focused more on the operational side, let's say, of this regarding the submission, evaluation of proposals, covering specifically the first two topics that Annika explained in her presentation. So the one on the Circular Cities and Region Initiative for the Circular Systemic Solutions, and the one on enhancing collaboration between the CCRI Initiative support organization. I will give you an overview on the evaluation criteria, on some key aspects to focus on the text of the calls, and also some cross-cutting aspects. I will conclude then the presentation with some a recommendation for the applicants or potential applicants. In my next slide, you can see some of the key points you have to pay attention to when if you decide to apply for one of the two calls that I just mentioned. important aspect are for sure to have clear in mind and clear understood which type of action you are applying to. So innovate action are different from CSA, also for what concerns the funding rate. It is important for you to read carefully the topics and to pay attention also to the text of the topics and the verbs, for example, that they are used. So should is, for example, different from must, and other small things that can make really the difference in your application. And please remember always that projects have to provide contribution, a concrete contribution to policy or generally to the debate on future legislation. Do not also underestimate what I just mentioned, the cross-cutting aspects that I will list later, like, for example, the social science and humanities aspect. This is particularly important, especially if they are mentioning the topics text. In my next slide, I just give you an overview, let's say, on the two calls that I just mentioned. It is important here to mention, as was previously done, that the circular systemic solution one is an innovation action. For public authorities, is particularly important because for all the beneficiary, the legal entities, let's say the funding rate is 70%, but if you're talking about legal entities that are not profit, the EU contribution can be up 100%. While for the second topic, so the CCRI supporting organization is a coordination support action, and we are talking about a contribution of 100%. In the next slide, I give you, let's say, an overview on the evaluation phase. So these are two different type of evaluations. So the first one is a two-stage evaluation, and the second one is a first stage. It is important for you that to know that, for example, for the circular systemic solution call, we will have to present for the first stage just 10 pages outline of the project. While if you manage to, and you are successful, let's say, to pass to the second stage, you will have to present your all, let's say, proposals, which is 45 pages. For the second one, so the CSA, regarding enhancing collaboration with CCRI, it is a one-stage evaluation. So we are talking about, let's say, the fact that you have to submit one proposal at once, and it will be 33 pages. Why? Because we are talking about a lump sum, in this case, topic. So it's different from normal CSA, which is normally 30 pages. This is, with this case, 33 pages. For what concern in the evaluation criteria, so the next slide, it is important for you to know that for the circular systemic solution, we're talking about an innovation action. So activities that are aimed to produce plans or arrangement or design for new, altered, or improved products, processes, or services. In the first stage, just the excellence and the impact criteria will be used. So the quality and efficiency of the implementation is a criteria that will not be considered in the first evaluation stage. So please take this into consideration when you submit your the outline, let's say, of your proposal. For what concerns the CSA, so the next slide. Of course, it's a different type of action in this case, and it's important for you to know that in this single stage call, since the beginnings, so you will have to submit the whole proposal, and all the three criteria will be considered. So the excellence, the impact, and the quality and efficiency of implementation. It is important for you to know that for this type of topic, the budget will have an important let's say, role, because it's a lump sum, meaning that you won't have to provide your, let's say, the actual cost incurred during the implementation of your action. So specifically, the budget and how you plan it and which costs you foresee are something that is really taken into consideration when reviewers are evaluating these proposals. In the next slide, I wanted just to make some example for what concern what you have to, let's say, pay attention to when you read the topic, and you have to keep in mind what reviewers, let's say, would consider. if, for example, I take into consideration a CCRI systemic solution call, and they are talking about that all the let's say the outcomes have to be taken into consideration. It's important that you take them all into consideration. To make a concrete example, if the topic is mentioning that creation of business opportunities and jobs is not just sufficient, let's say, to say, okay, my proposal will create a certain amount of, let's say, jobs. You have to prove that you improve the situation, that you let's say you provide statistics, and that that you explain actually how you will achieve the results of creating business opportunities and more jobs. Always in the same topic text, in the next slide. When we are talking about, for example, the value chains considered, there is a part of the topics text talking about the fact that the implemented circular systemic solution can address ideally more than one of the key product value chains, and there are a list of them. In this case, I would feel to suggest to you that it is important to let's say, actually be clear on which value chain you are focusing on, so it's clear for the reviewer, and do not overpromise and be realistic. So it's better to focus really on 2 value chains instead of 4, but let's say superficially covered. So this is a really let's say important aspect that you have to take into consideration, and also the policy context, which is something that you have to contribute to, as Annika mentioned in her presentation. And so clearly a clear action, let's say, and concrete action on how you intend to use the outcomes of your project to contribute to the, let's say, advancement of the legislation mentioned. In the next slide, I listed some of the cross-cutting aspects that you have to pay attention to and not to disregard when you prepare your presentation. I would let's say recommend to you, for example, in the topic of the CCRI collaboration, so in the lump sum one, the CSA, to take well into consideration the stakeholder and user involvement. So let's say a multi-actor approach, which is really important to pay attention to, and as it is also mentioned in the topic text. But there are some other aspects that should be taken into consideration from a public authority's point of view. Also, the gender dimension is really relevant. It's important also that you, let's say, pay attention, for example, to the social science and humanity aspect, which might be mentioned in the topic text, and of course also to the gender dimension and R&I aspect. In the next slide, I resumed some of, let's say, tip and tricks that, in my opinion, you should pay attention to when you draft your proposal. So first of all, try to grab the attention of evaluators since the first, let's say, paragraphs. It is important also that you take into consideration that for sure the experts are from the expertise field in which you have written your proposal, but some of the experts might have also, let's say more relevant expertise in other part of your proposal. So it is important that you use a straightforward and plain language, and don't give something for granted, let's say, something that you may know and from an external viewer might be not so obvious. Try to be, let's say, as much specific as possible in your packages and coherent all over, let's say, your proposal. So if you mentioned that you will do something, the excellent part, then it must be reflected also in the let's say planification part, so in the part regarding the plan. It's important that all the actions that you present are measurable and credible, but especially measurable. So in the end, if I want to measure outcomes, I need to know how you intend to pursue certain goals, and if I can verify actually how you achieve certain goals. And I said at the beginning, try to be realistic as possible and do not overpromise when you write your proposal. So try to convince the evaluators on few and good things instead of promising, let's say, the moon, and then the plan is not, let's say, sufficiently convincing to support what you want to achieve. In the next slide, I wanted to underline the fact that for public bodies is especially important the gender equality plan. That is, let's say, a set of action that aim to promote gender equality through institutional and cultural change. It is important for you to know at this stage that during the evaluation stage, it will be just required a self-declaration that you will put in place a gender equality plan. And of course, it's a plan that must be linked also to the organization's mission, to your organization mission, to the context, and created with the input of the community that you are dealing with. A good gender equality plan should involve all staff, students, and stakeholders from all genders, or the main stakeholders that you are dealing with. This was my last slide. I conclude my presentation, as always, like to tell you to follow the Research Executive Agency profile in Twitter and in LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Davide. And if I may suggest now, we can go through the question to Annika, the GRTD, and Davide. What I can say, maybe I start with a couple of questions that were addressing the CSO, and it's really a good occasion also to clarify what the CSO is, the legal nature of this office, and our role. I explained the role, so we try to coordinate as much as possible all the actors of the CCRI, starting from pilots, fellow, therefore cities and region, directly or indirectly supported in kind by the CSO, and CCRI project and associated partner. Now, 4 clear messages. If you're a partner, a fellow, or anyway a CCRI stakeholder, it doesn't mean that you have any additional, let's say, possibility to be more than others to win the application. So basically, there is not an automatic or any causality or correlation between be part of the CCRI and having more chance to win in a call for proposal, not at all. And what we are, on the contrary, providing like this with this webinar, which is, by the way, open to everyone, so CCRI stakeholder and non-CCRI stakeholder, is try to, first of all, present the relevant topics and call for proposal, basically, for circular economy at the local and regional scale. And again, with the participant, that if you see also those that are participating to this webinar are much more from outside the CCRI. So that's exactly the scope, to share as much as possible horizontally this information. Then the website is going to be recorded and available, of course, to everyone. The second message is like the CSO is based on a framework contract with the Commission. So there is not a legal entity independent and is connected to the Commission, is the arm of the Commission. We cannot provide or interpretation of any topics for this. And then maybe Davide, Annika, you can confirm and explain further. There is a European Commission help desk for this. So we cannot definitely, as a CSO, interpret or facilitate somehow the matchmaking or creation of consortium, the interpretation of this topic. For this interpretation and matchmaking, there are de facto very interesting website and facilities that the European Commission set up for all the calls, including those of the CCRI. Another important message is the last one. At the CSO Coordination and Support Office, definitely we provide support. The support will start with 2023, and very soon we are trying to also to communicate as much as possible the typology of support that we will provide. And again, I underline again, this support is going to be in kind. So basically, no, we don't provide funds. Those providing funds in this context is Horizon, according to Horizon rules, and these rules are equal for everyone. If I may ask maybe David and Annika also to step in, if you have to say something more on these points, that would be really useful. Thanks.
I support what you said. I think we can go through the questions that are in the chat to go exactly on the points that were raised.
And if I may ask David also, if you can maybe share in the chat the links to the,
Yes.
if any question on the interpretation or any question on the topics, and especially the link to the website that is really facilitating the creation of consortium.
Yes,
with
yes, I
all
will share it.
actors. Yeah.
Yes, so as let's say, as Andrea said, it's so there is a, let's say, of course, it's a there are institutional, let's say, channels for you to look for consorts, for other partners, say, over more, let's say, suitable ones for your type of proposals. The CCRI, let's say, in this case, is a third party that is doing a certain type of task, but in this sense, apart from the network and your proactivity, let's say, in looking for someone in the network with CCRI and then try to build up a consortium, that is not, there is, let's say, not an active role that should be played. Here, I share with you in the chat the let's say, the partner search tool that you can find in Cordis, and some of you may already know. Which might help you in find, let's say, missing partners, and it's quite useful because you can filter according to the type of program, the country, and the organization type that you are looking for.
Yeah, and additionally, there is the the Progress event organized by the National Contact Points on 19th of December. So that is the tool to be used also for matchmaking.
Yeah, so maybe I react to this question from Laura. That she didn't quite catch on my answer basically, and basically the CSO cannot help the pilot fellow partner to link up. Well, the fact to look, the pilots and fellows, you do have all their profile in the CCRI website, as you do have for CCRI project, associated partner. So the fact that you can find them there. Having said that, yeah, they're participant to Horizon as anyone. So here, you really want to repeat maybe for the third time, but it's worth it. Horizon rules are clear and they are not different from CCRI stakeholders at all. So everyone can apply with the same rules. Maybe if I may suggest now, also there are a couple of questions for Annika, and then of course, David, feel free to step in, especially on the circular bio 021 stage. The question is, must relevant city or regions or grouping of these be fully flagged, also associated partner for the consortium, or can their participation be based on other form, like, I don't know, written oral letter, declaration of support, commitment? So these are, I would say, a quite general question for Horizon, and if you don't mind to address it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it's related to the fact that the topic is part of the blind evaluation pilot. And perhaps Davide can complement me here about the rules here, because indeed the applicants in their proposal can't disclose their organization names, acronyms, logos, or names of personnel. So I'm not sure how, if in case of this declarations of support or some commitment letters are allowed here. Davide, would you complement here, or should we get?
Usually in the past it was, let's say, was possible, let's say, to disclose, because it was, let's say, in a sense, an added value also to the quality of the proposal. But if you want, like, we would like to have, let's say, more concrete answer, then there's a more detailed answer, then you can always you can Andrea share my email, and then eventually they can write me directly.
Also, one thing is that if you submit your questions to the Research Inquiry Service, we can eventually publish the frequently answered questions in the Funding and Tenders portal, so it's public to everyone.
And on this point, if I may step in, thank you for raising this point, because basically, again, with the role of the CSO, we won't publish a sort of web page or something on the topics, question, interpretation, etc. That's really the role of the Commission, to have one voice, which is the official one, and present in one place, accessible to everyone, all the question mark, etc. on these calls.
Sorry, if I can add something on this, it's as I said at the beginning, it's gonna be really short. Let's say proposal in the first stage, because it's really limited in the pages. Let's say in the first part, you must know that you have to focus on the excellent impact part, and probably it's important for you to focus also more on the technical aspect of your project. In the second part, if you are successful, then there will be the space also to provide any additional, let's say, type of declaration in support of your proposal.
If I may suggest, really to go ahead with the structure of the webinar, we can go to the next speaker. Before doing this, if you have questions, please again still include them in the chat, and then we can try to address also ex post after the webinar, so we get back to you in written or again FAQs. Now it is really a moment to listen what the city of Milan experience in applying to Horizon Call. Milan is, I would say, is one of the most successful cities in applying recently, especially to circular bioeconomy calls in Europe. Cristina will explain a little bit the philosophy, that the policy and the framework, the starting point called Milan, focus on food system, and how Horizon Europe really helped to implement this strategy, which is, by the way, not involving only Milan, but also very far away and beyond one city only, with the Urban Food Policy Pact. So, Cristina, the floor is yours, and thanks.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me well. So I'm Cristina Sossan, and I work in the Milan Food Policy Office. And I will try to give some inputs and some vision also on food, particularly related to Horizon. Just as an introduction, Milan is involved as a leader or as a partner in 18 Horizon projects. But I mean, today we will focus on the one related to food particularly, and the one that we are leading as a lead partner that is called Food Trails. Go to the next slide, please. So we start from the vision, as Andrea was saying, because the idea born within the context of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. Milan is sharing this pact, and we launched this pact in 2015 after the Expo. And this very important initiative gave us the opportunity to work both at international level and both at local level, creating our food policy. I will not go through this, but it's just to give you the idea that there has been such an important political commitment on this aspect that also is related to circular economy and all the other things that are related to the food system. So the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact nowadays involves more than 250 cities. And it deals with cities to cities cooperation, and there are more or less 37 recommended actions within 6 categories of implementation. Go to the next slide, please. So the Milan Pact in Europe, and why is important to relate this framework within the horizon? Because we started to think about a proposal on food together with the other cities that are member of the Eurocities network, which is the most important regional framework of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. In 2016, the Eurocity organization decided to establish a working group on food, and within that context, Milan starts to talk with the other cities in order to think how we can develop an Horizon project. This was connected also with the opportunity of having a specific line of Horizon where cities could apply as leaders. So the process has been to create a call within the Eurocity group, and within this call we aimed to call the cities to participate with us to this important Horizon call in order to try to think and innovate our food systems. So as you can see here, the Eurocity working group on food has three main goals: meetings and webinars in order to share and increase knowledge, European joint projects, so cooperation, exchanges and research, and European advocacy. So these are the main focus that are also have been inserted in our Horizon food trace projects. So you can see also a map where you can visualize all the cities and how different is the membership within this Eurocity group. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is just another other pictures that give you the sense of how big is the community and how is important is the community of people that involves mayor, deputy mayors, councillors, but most of all food policy officers that are committed towards the sustainability of food system. As I was saying before, that means not only food as a specific topic, but also circular economy, food waste, food collection, food production, and all the things that are related to food. Next slide, please. Okay, on this base, we co-designed the food trails. As I said before, you can see in this picture that the process has been long. As also the other speakers said, it's very important to focus on the dates because we have to start to think about our idea a long time before. Because we have to involve the right stakeholders. It's very important, specifically in relation to food system, but also to circular economy, to have a clear image of how this system works and who are the stakeholders involved and what are the actions, the most important actions that we want to tackle in order to have a successful Horizon project and to design successful activities. So you can see here that we met in Valencia and then in Amsterdam, and then again in Milan. It was a process that took 1 year as a whole, but more or less 6 months to develop the proposal, identifying the specific WUPI leader and also talking with them and also write with them the final proposal. Go to the next slide, please. So yeah, this is our project. The Food Trace is a 4-year EU-funded project, and which is in the context of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. We have 11 European cities, we have universities, and we have other stakeholders that will have and will co-design the actions with us. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, here you can see we wanted to put the logos and the images in order to give you the perspective of how broad, how big is the partners list. So we have, as I said, cities, we have research institutes, we have also foundations like you see Cariplo Foundation and also Cariplo Factory, which is an innovative center, but we also have third sector and NGOs like Slow Food, you can see here, because this project tries to bring all the knowledge on food and involving a lot of different stakeholders in the different WPs. In terms of cities, you can see Bergamo, Birmingham, Bordeaux, Copenhagen, Funchal, Grenoble, Milan, Thessaloniki, Tirana, and Warsaw. So you can see also that different European areas are involved in this city. And you can see also that there is the rural aspects, the coastal, the island, medium cities, big cities. So this is very important also when you think about your project. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is another picture that gives you the sense of how big is the consortium. The next slide, please. Okay, this is another, just a quick review of another project where we are not the leading partner, but we are the leading city, but we are a partner. This project is an Horizon project related to food, headed by ICLEI, but it's very important here the role of the city as well, because the cities are actually the implementing partner, so the actors that can concretely set up the policy or change the policy in order the action to be effective in the local context. Go to the next slide, please. So as I said, it's another very, very big Horizon project, because here the consortium is made by 43 partners, and most of them are cities. There is still Milan, Copenhagen, Lyon, and many other European cities. And there are also a lot of external stakeholders related to food and school canteens. Here, the main aspect is school canteen. In food trails is food waste. So is the creation of pilot projects and living lab that will work on the food waste. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, here is just another image and figures and slogan. Some of the other speakers said we have to be effective in the first paragraph. We have not to talk about slogans, but try to be effective on the message and the activity that we want to propose and to do. So in terms of food trays, it was living labs and try to develop innovative actions toward food waste reductions, for instance. Here is be effective in school canteens and innovating school canteens and create the right environment to ensure that pupils can approach and appreciate food at school in order also to promote a better education. Go to the next slide, please. Okay. Just a quick overview of the negative aspects. Also, we, of course, we try to apply to a lot of call for proposal. Not all of them were successful. There was one of this that was not very successful because we think that the idea was not so clear, and also probably the matching of partners, and also how each partner can participate is very important, because if this part is not clear, the proposal is not result as not effective. Go to the next slide, please. Okay. As a last slide, just a SWOT analysis in order to underline the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and also the threats. So as I said before, strong political commitment is very important because if you are a city and if you want to change a thing, you have, of course, to have the support and the participation of the other administrative parts, but the political commitment for sure, because it's very important to give the perspective and the sense of engagement also, because we have to communicate that to your citizen after all in the end. So important focus on the city's needs. So as I said at the beginning, it's very important, particularly when we talk about food, but also on circular economy, it's very important to know and to map the environment where we have to act in order to involve all the stakeholders. The weaknesses is the project limited duration. We all know that it's very, I mean, some actions take a long time. So we have to be sure that the actions that we want to propose could be realized within the horizon time, okay? And the limited previous experience in coordinating horizons. So this is also another thing that you have to take into account. If you're not prepared, maybe just decide to go as a partner, not as a leader, because being a lead partner means to have a coordinating partner means to have a lot of work and a lot of experience in coordinating different type of stakeholders, not all cities. Opportunities is existing city networks, very active on food, but also on other topics. So this is very important. Try to act within this specific network, because you can find people and that has probably the same knowledge, the same problems, and or I mean the same issue but not the same problem. So you can discuss specifically the needs. And a dedicated budget for the implementation of the action, which is very, very important because it's not so easy to find specific lines where you can also in Horizon innovate and try to create innovations. The threats is the risk of failure. There are many type of risk if you are a city, like administrative parts or the times or political things that can slow your process, or you know, I mean, there are several risks that you have to take into account when you design an Horizon action. And also another risk is to have two different visions or approaches to a specific issue. So this is also very important to discuss at the beginning. When you are writing this proposal with the other partner, try to have a clear idea of which are the differences, but which are also the opportunities. So let's go to the final one. Okay, thanks for listening. Thanks for thanks for giving us this opportunity. I just would like to share the website of Food Trace, which is, I don't know if the colleague Linnea could also put it in the chat, and you can see in the website all the actions that have been done up to now, and also the consortium, all the information on the other consortium and of the other cities that are involved in this. And if you have questions, this is the email, foodpolicy@comune.milano.it, that you can write to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cristina. I think it was a really, really useful presentation to really understand how a quite, I would say, successful city in terms of application. Basically, you explain, if I may summarize a little bit, that is quite, of course, crucial, a political commitment that you have it basically, I would say, long time ago. You started with, of course, Expo, which is something coming, of course, on international, national level, but then the city, if I understood correctly, was really able to use it and to continue, basically using as a starting point. And as soon as the Expo was ended, 2015, the policy and the heritage about this, the legacy about this was basically your vision, and you were really able to transform the Expo into a vision, and using this vision to then considering also all the instruments that you had in your position, starting from Horizon. So that's, if I understood correctly, political commitment, number one. Crucial to have a clear vision, a strategy, a policy framework, that in your case is the pact on food. But also, and thanks really for be humble and honest. So you also failed, and that's completely normal, and is not something that should basically stop you to apply for the next round. And by the way, I think Anna, after as the last but not least in terms of important presentation, I guess she will teach us really how to don't get discouraged if you fail at the beginning, by using, really learning as much as possible and go ahead. So that's, of course, something important for life, but it's also important also for Horizon calls. Maybe a question, if I maybe start from myself, how do you organize internally in the municipality? So basically, who is doing what, etc. Because that's from what we can understand from these first 6-8 months of CCRI, that the governance, etc., is really important, especially who is doing what within the city is very important. On this point, of course, the OECD that is cooperating with the CCRI is the master, and hopefully next year we will discuss a lot of governance, of course. But if you, Christina, can explain a little bit how you guys organize and what was working and what was not. Thanks.
Yeah, it was, thanks for the question. And as I said, it was a long process, as I said before. So prepare in advance, prepare the idea, and we discuss, we as a food policy office, we of course work together with the International Relations Office, which is the one that relates with European funds. So they have the knowledge of how to apply, what are the administrative, but also the specific parts that we have to fill and how to fill. So they have the experience on how to write specific parts, all the specific parts. Then, of course, we relied during the writing to the other WUPI leaders, specifically the universities and research centers that we have involved, because together with them, we tried to create the methodology for the pilots. So we had the knowledge in some cases on the food systems, on the stakeholders, and what are the needs. So we as a city know the needs, but we had to share how to respond to the specific needs together with the other stakeholders. So it was really a process that a co-designed process. Internally, it was mainly, as I said, has the Food Policy Office together with the International Relations Office that is also related to the administrative and financial parts. So we created the budget together with them. We created the specific tools that we had to implement. Then for the other sections and for the different WPs, we really created some meetings like every 2 weeks with all of them, giving them some objective to achieve in order to the writing, and then we met periodically in order to check the advancement and also in order to be able to fulfill the timing that we have to respect and to arrive prepared to the final date of the presentation. So it was really kind of also a coordination part, also the one that was in the preparation for. So yeah, that was, I think that for Milan, it was very important to have this big knowledge on food system because we were able also to create the participation of other cities that somehow had specific knowledge of only some parts, and we tried to involve them and try to, let me say, force them to increase their knowledge on their local food system in order to improve our proposal.
Thanks, very clear, very interesting. Look, Christina, there are 2 questions from the audience, one both on food trays, so it seems to be quite interesting. How many partners has the partnership, basically? And if you can estimate the effort for elaborating the full proposal. So how many stakeholder participants, and then you explained a little bit already, but if you can give an estimation of the effort for elaborating the full proposal in your experience, if you can tell us about this, that would be really useful, I think.
Yeah, more or less there are 30 stakeholders, and as I said in the slide, it's 11 European cities. So the cities here are a lot, and the effort for the preparation, I must say, is a lot. As I said, it's 6 months full work of 2 or 3 people of the office, at least. I mean, 2 as a minimum, but I mean 2 or 3 for the just for the municipality. So within a municipality, at least 2 or 3 people, and then 1 person per VP, but probably also 2. And it's, as I said, as a broad picture, 1 year in order to elaborate the idea, start to share the idea with other partner, but 6 months of full work.
Thank you. Maybe also to, if I may comment on this, let's also consider the magnitude of food trays is huge. So for a huge idea, vision, and project, that for sure the investment of time, energy.
This is the biggest project of the city of Milan ever. So it was like 11 million. So it was really huge. But it was, as I said before, like the springboard in order to launch and to really involve other cities in really innovative actions. So it really trust your ideas, we say. If we think you have a good idea, yeah, don't give up. And it's a lot of work, but then in the end, it worked out.
Yeah. And if I may ask, if Milan is, okay, in the context of Italy, is one of the biggest one together with Rome, is more or less the urban area is close to 5 million, the municipality close to 2. So for a country like Italy is a huge city, nothing compared with London and Milan, of course. But if you consider maybe smaller cities, or maybe a combination between, as you said, with Bergamo, which is next to you, or I mean, a smaller city than Milan, do you think is, I mean, let's forget, don't apply to Horizon, or maybe let's apply, try to get a sort of decent magnitude, maybe with other city clustering and apply? What is your suggestion on this, if I may?
Well, I think that a city should try to think about one, the experience that they have in dealing with European project in general. I mean, because if they haven't participated to Horizon, but they have like experience in managing, I don't know, like Urbact to UIA project, it depends. So they have the experience of managing other type of big project. I suggest to try. It's another challenge, but the results and of course the money that you can invest are important. So it's a very good experience. Or if it's the first time, you can just try to participate with others. As I show you, you could see Bergamo, Bordeaux, Funchal, other small cities that are our partners, because they started too. And I think that yeah, it's a very great opportunity, at least to try of being a partner.
It's a good, I think it's really a good tip to, okay, if you're new with Horizon, then join a consortium with people maybe more experienced than you, and it's worth it to try. And if you have a good consortium, as we said, that you have quite a good chance to go through it. Cristina, many thanks, and I guess you can stay with us until the end. So many thanks for your presentation. Really, really interesting. Lydia, if we can, so Lydia, leaders from the Centro para el Desarrollo Tecnológico y la Innovación in Spain, is basically one of the national contact points. So part of the, let's say, if you have a question on Horizon, if you need tips on Horizon, Lydia is one of the really active person working on this topic. And what we're talking about today is like really try to explain your experience, some case study that you somehow observe or support, what was working, what was not working. So we are really looking for your presentation. Seems to be very interesting. Thanks, Lydia. Lydia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to you for the invitation to participate in this webinar. Well, the nice thing for me is that the previous presentations, in the previous presentation, we have learned a lot about the big number of opportunities that the regions and the cities, the local administration have be open or are still open. In particular, the previous presentation from Milano City, well, it helps a lot because some of the tips I'm gonna share with you from my experience, well, is the experience of Milan. So it's great to have this confirmation from a city that is not from Spain. That is the ones I've been in contact with. We need to remind that Horizon Europe is the research and innovation program, and I like the word innovation because this means that we need to take the solutions into reality. And in many cases, we need the regions and the cities, the local administrations, to have these solutions in place. Well, Annika has told us about many possible opportunities, and I think that there are going to be even more, for instance, in the missions program. But let's start. So please, next slide, please. The content of my presentation is only 2 points. This concrete experiences in applying to Horizon calls for proposals based on those projects or those consortia I've been working with directly in the elaboration of their proposals, and some practical tips, more tips than rules in applying to Horizon Europe calls for proposals. Next slide, please. And of course, this is not gonna substitute any official information that we can find in all the links that Annika and Davide has shared with us. Next slide, please. Okay, just very fast, Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 research and innovation programs. So the keyword here is innovation in relation with the participation of regions and local administrations. Next slide, please. And in this slide that try to have in a nutshell all the information about the Horizon Europe explained before, but I want you to highlight that any type of entity can be funded, can participate in Horizon Europe calls, and in particular the public administrations, because this program is focused on the global challenges and the impact of the program. So this collaborative project needs many times the active participation as partners of the cities or of the regions. Next slide, please. And I'm going to start about these more practical tips. Next slide, please. And the first tip is that there is no magic formula or recipe that is working. I mean, it's not always the same type of consortia. There is not always the same type of promoter, because there are not always the same kind of topics, and the topics are not always asking for the same kind of participation of the cities or of the regions. So there is no one and only formula just to participate and to have success in the participation in Horizon Europe. Please, next slide. And here, these two slides, this one and the next, just to summarize some of the tips that some of them has been actually mentioned before. Well, the rules for applying to Horizon Europe calls are really clear. Maybe the first time that we approach to the program can be like, oh, okay, this is very, very complicated, but well, the rules are clear, and we maybe need to be used to the language, but we can find all the information is public, and there is a lot of webinars, a lot of info days, there is a lot of information. But the important thing is that we need to be aware of these opportunities. How? Through webinars like this one, joining different events, the info days that the Commission and the agencies organize, but also the info days that are organized at national levels, because the national contact points, the NCPs, usually organize these events, trying to communicate, trying to share these opportunities with all possible stakeholders. Please, use us, use the national contact points. We are officially nominated by our countries and the European Commission to support all kind of participants, all kind of applicants in this Horizon Europe calls. And we organize events. We can, you can write, send an email to us, just call us to ask any question, to ask if your idea can feel or fit well in one of the topics or in the course, just to ask about the details of the topics. We can even just review your proposals in order to help you in getting the best proposal to apply to the different course. Because it's important that you choose this call or this topic that in which your idea fits well. There is a very high competence in this Horizon Europe calls. So the idea is that your proposal should answer all the things that the topic, that the call is asking for. So is your idea matching perfectly with the topic that we are applying to? Of course, and the previous speaker has said this before, you need some resources, time and personal dedicated to participate in this project. And to participate is not being you don't need to be the coordinator. Even in many cases, it's better just not to be the coordinator because it's really a very time-consuming, a very resource-consuming role. And maybe your participation as a city or as a region, you don't need to be the coordinator, but to be a partner contributing to the project. So be open to assuming different roles, because sometimes in some areas you can be a front runner. You can have a very well developed plan, for instance, in relation with circular economy or with nature-based solutions. But maybe in some other areas, maybe in water management, you are not so much ahead. So maybe you can be a follower. So be open to different possibilities to participate in this consortia. And again, related with having the proposal that answers all the questions, all the points that the topic is asking for, please try to join a consortium covering all the topic requirements. And I must say that now the topics are asking different kind of profiles, not only the technological, but also the social aspect in relation, in particular, for instance, in these topics related with cities and regions. Next slide, please. And how to find partners, because this is one of the things that many times, how to find partners or how can I join a consortia? So, well, maybe maybe one thing is one nice thing of this framework programs is that we have the whole information about all the projects that have been previously funded, and we can find there a lot of information about the entities, about the cities, about the regions, about the universities, the research centers that have been participating in this project. Of course, just to participate in this brokerage event that can facilitate us, can facilitate you to meet with partners that can have the same interest or the same topics of interest. So it could be a good way. But as the previous speaker said, make use of the networks that you already have. Maybe you have been participating in other projects, in other programs. Maybe you are part of some kind of network at the European level. So make use of this knowledge, of these contacts, because maybe you are not so much, you don't know so much about Horizon Europe calls, but maybe the other cities or the other regions, or the other universities or the other research centers, they know about how to participate in this program. So make use of your contact, because you are going to be much more confident in those entities that you know well. And of course, use all your links at national, regional, local level, including the national contact points. Next slide, please. And now I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about some concrete experiences in applying to Horizon calls. I'm gonna just share with you some projects in which some regions or Spanish cities have been participating or are participating. And this project, I have been in touch with them or have been involved somehow in the preparation of the proposal. So please go to the next slide. The two first cases I'm going to talk about, they are two projects that were presented to one topic in Societal Challenge 5, Horizon 2020, in Horizon 2020. This topic, the title of the topic was Demonstrating Innovative Nature-Based Solutions in Cities. So keywords, demonstrating and cities. In these topics, the cities were needed as partners of the consortia. And there were two kinds of cities, the front runners, the ones that were gonna implement the demonstrators in the cities. They were like some kind of living laboratories, and the follower cities that were like, let's say, learning or just getting the information in order to see how to implement later in their cities what the practical issues they could learn from the front runner cities. In this case, the project was coordinated by Spain. So please go to the next slide. And here you can see the whole consortia. And I just put in squares all the partners that were from Spain. Okay, this is something that we are going to use in all the cases. In the name that is in the square that is double is the name of the Ayuntamiento of Valladolid. In this case, Valladolid was not, the city council was not the leader of the consortium, was CARTIF. CARTIF is a technological center, a research center that is providing innovative solution to the industry, but has been working for a long time with the city council of Valladolid in different types of projects in relation with energy, urban definition, and also nature-based solution. So the promoter of the project was really CARTIF, but with a very close and joint collaboration with the City Council of Valladolid. And the other Spanish participants, can you see there are technological centers, they are private companies. They were different profiles that were needed, that were asked by the topic, by the call. Go to the next slide, please. Grow Green was a second project in the same call, so the same scheme, the front runner cities and fellow or follower cities. In this case, the consortium was coordinated by a council from UK. United Kingdom. At that time, UK was still in the European Union. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, what I'm going to show you there is again the consortium that was participating, because this project actually just ended at the beginning of November, if I'm not wrong. And here you can see again the Spanish partners participating in that. Is Valencia, the City Council of Valencia, and I just highlighted Las Naves. In this case, Las Naves is a center of social and urban innovation that depends on the City Council of Valencia. And Las Naves was really the promoter of the project the promoter of the Spanish participant of the consortium. Let's say the one that helps pretty much the City Council of Valencia to be part of this consortium. Again, we have a university, we have centers, technological centers that were matching all the different profiles that were asked in the different cities. Because in this case, the idea was to have, let's say, the same structure in the different cities, having the city council and some entities supporting the activities that were gonna be developed in the city. Let's go to the next slide. We are going to a different kind of action. The two previous ones were innovation actions. So you need to develop a demonstrator in the city. Here we are in the coordination and support action, with the idea of establishing a network of mining and metallurgy regions across Europe. So here the regions were really the main role. They were having the main role in this project. The idea here, the idea of this CSA was share the experiences of the regions and the knowledge to tackle the fundamental challenges in relation with the mining and extractive industry. In the next slide, and again, what I want to show you is the whole consortia. Here you can see that there are a lot of regions across Europe, mining regions, and in the case of Spain, we have 3 regions participating in the coordinator and support action, but the promoter, again, was in this case a research center, Icanfil. Icanfil is a research center in Castilla y León. It's an institute working in this area that have a close contact with many mining regions in Spain. And although there is no a direct partner, I mean, it's not as a partner in this consortia, they had a great support from the unit of Castilla y León Council that involved or just contact the other regions, Aragon and Andalucía, and contact the other regions in order to be part of this consortium. So here again we have a different kind of type of action, a different kind of promoter, and a different kind of relation previously established between the mining regions previous to going to this project. Next slide, please. And this is my last example, my last case. In this is another type of action. In this case, we are talking about a pre-commercial procurement. And here again, we need to have the European, the procurers, in this case were the cities, as partners of the project. And the nice thing of this project, that it was really interested in the contamination of polluted sites in these cities. The nice thing of this project is, if we go to the next slide, we can see the consortium. Next slide, please. This consortium, here you again the same. We have the city council of Bilbao, the promoter that in this case was a private company, and other Spanish participant, research centers and technological centers, but also a unit from the Basque Country government. But the nice thing of this project is that this consortium, or the basic of this consortium, came from other projects from Horizon 2020. If we go to the next slide, in preparation of the Poseidon project, or in preparation of this pre-commercial procurement, in Horizon 2020, there was a coordination and support action that was launched to prepare the conditions to prepare the requirements of this pre-commercial procurement. And in this CSH, please go to the next slide, we can see that almost the same consortium were participating there. Who was in this case? Which entity was in this case the promoter? Well, in this case was the private company. Más Abogados, this law company that had been working pretty much in contact with the City Council of Bilbao in relation with all the environmental issues. So they started to work. They found that this coordination and support action was really interesting for Bilbao City Council. They started to work with them. Bilbao was the leader of this CSA, and in the end, in the final project, the leadership was taken by other city, but the core of the consortium was the same. Please go to the next slide. Just some final ideas. Next slide, please. Regions and local administrations are essential in many topics in Horizon Europe calls, but there is no one and only formula, a magic formula to participate. My advice, make use of your networks. Make use of all the people that maybe have some experiences in European programs, or in particular Horizon Europe programs. And try to join a consortium with different profiles that could meet the requirement of the topics in the calls. That these universities, technological centers, private companies can be good partners and or promoters. And please count on the national contact points to help you on this point. Go to the next slide, where you can find the national contact points. Here is the web page in the Funding and Tenders Opportunities portal. And going to the next slide, you can see that you can find per country, per area, per different clusters or different knowledge areas, let's say. Going to the next slide, just is the final, more or less the final information. You can find the Horizon Europe World Programs. The Horizon Europe Info Day was on this Tuesday and Wednesday, and finally all the videos and presentation will be shared, will be public, and the virtual brokerage event will start next Monday. And of course, you can find more information in the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative. And this is all for my side, if I'm not wrong. Next to the thank you very much.
Thank you to you, Lydia. Was really a magnificent presentation. Is really what we really expecting from a national contact point. And I would say I really want to stop you for your presentation, because you really explained very clearly with your significant experience about what is happening, what could happen, who are the actors that can join together with, and that's really the scope of the webinar. We concrete case studies, so something that happened in reality with all the challenges and also strength in applying to this. Look, I think if you can confirm that the role of a national coordinator is inter alia to include and to plug in what is coming from Horizon, the European level, with the characteristic of the specific country, a specific reality at the local level, because basically the beauty, but also the challenges of Europe, I mean, the competencies of city, region are extremely different from one country to another. Spain, you're not say a federal country, but you're quasi a federal country where regions has a significant role. Other countries are much more centralized, so maybe stronger capacity from the municipality. So the role of the national coordinator, the national contact point for Horizon is really to try to channel and adapt a little bit whatever is coming from Europe to the reality of a member state of a region. Can you maybe explain a little bit better on this point, if I may?
Thank you for the question, because I think it's maybe we are not so much, or we need to be much more known by the general community. National contact points. First of all, we are national contact point for Horizon Europe. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is just to at national level, and I just want to explain a little bit, just to communicate, to share the opportunities that are in Horizon Europe, that are going to appear in Horizon Europe. How we do this at the different countries is different. For instance, in Spain, we are not a federal country, but we have our the comunidades autónomas, the regions, and we try to organize, for instance, events at national level, but also go into the different regions in order to facilitate that the knowledge go to the final applicant, and try to involve not only, let's say, the usual suspects, the researchers, the universities, whatever. We try to incorporate the different kind of profiles that are going to be needed to meet what the topics are asking for. I know that, for instance, in Spain, the national contact points are named at the national level, but I know that, for instance, in other countries, they have this, the internal organization of national contact points, they have national contact points named at regional level. So they are directly more close to the regions, for instance. But in the end, we need to try to share the information about the opportunities, to identify the interest of these participants, and try to connect these participants, for instance, with other participants in other countries. In this sense, the national contact point could help also in building the consortia, because we are in contact with our colleagues from our countries and say, okay, I have identified this profile, this interest, this group, maybe we can join, we can just put together in order to help you to build this consortia. So, and the last part maybe is when the consortium is already working in the proposal. We can also help, at least in Spain we do that, in reviewing the proposal in order just to try to help them to have the best proposal, because I mean it's really a big competence in Horizon Europe.
Thank you very much, Rui. Everything very clear and super useful. I think we are a little bit 4 minutes late, but I guess was a very good investment to listen to you, Lydia, and many thanks again. If we may now move to the last, but definitely not least in terms of importance, presentation. Hi, Anna. You are representing a CCRI project. So congratulations, first of all, is an innovation action. Innovation action, I remember, are those actions with a TRL quite high, but still that they need to demonstrate whether a value chain, a process, a technological entity can really evolve into something that is commercial, quasi-commercial. And that's exactly the reason why the CCRI investing so much, the Commission is invested so much on innovation action, is because in the context of research and innovation in the CCRI, we are focusing much more on innovation. So something that is, again, close to be applied by city, region, local territories. And this project really are demonstrator project to demonstrate that something, a value chain can have future. And why is important the role of the Horizon here? Because basically with this public money, you invest a significant amount of grants to address what is normally called the valley of death of innovation. So those the value chain that are promising, but to be demonstrated, to be promising, sustainable from an economic and environmental point of view, they need this money because the profit at this stage is not that significant. We do need private sector to be involved, but the profit are not that necessarily significant, or with a big question mark. So that's the reason why, one of the reasons why the innovation action are very crucial. If you want to be innovative on circular economy at the local and regional level, but also if you want to move beyond a circular economy that de facto is very often, let's say, related to the management of waste, which is not only the circular economy. Circular economy is a philosophy, if you want, that can be applied to many value chain, many sectors. And these demonstration projects are really try to do so. So Anna, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for the participation.
Thank you very much for the good introduction into innovation actions. And definitely I agree fully that with the innovation actions, as we are dealing with higher TRL levels, so technology readiness levels, there's still development and scaling up, which is the tough part. But let's take you into a tour into our Treasures project, hear a little bit about the different roles that we have in the project for cities and regions. Like Andrea mentioned, I'm Anna Tenhonen-Lunkka. I work as a senior scientist and project manager at VTT. It's a technical research center of Finland. And I'm the coordinator of Treasures, so VTT is acting as this Treasures project coordinator. Short agenda for my presentation today, and some kind of wishes and hopes what you can take away from this. So I will present the Treasures project in a nutshell, and the aim is that you can little bit see and understand how the projects can be structured, because that's a quite important part in terms of how we develop, for example, the systemic circular solutions, what kind of roles there could be. Then I'll take a look at the cities and regions that are involved in the project as partners. So there have been discussions about the different roles. There are the beneficiary roles and then the coordinator roles. So we'll take a little bit of a look at what kind of roles we have with the city and regional partners in the project. And again, give you a little bit of tips that what kind of things you could be doing in a project. Of course, do not limit yourself to what I present, merely just ideas. Then finally, let's go through a few key takeaways based on our experiences, and then tips on how to get involved in these projects. Yes, maybe if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our project started in June this year. It's a 4-year project. We have a little bit less under 10 million euro total budget, and we had 17 partners and 1 affiliated entity in our project. And what we really do is we aim to initiate systemic change by developing these technologies and the systemic circular economy solutions in cities and regions for currently underutilized or unused plastic waste streams, end-of-life electric vehicle batteries, and bio-based side and waste streams. So we have different kind of technological solutions that we develop for each of these streams. And the aim is that we really implement these solutions together with companies, societies, which include citizens, consumers, communities, regional actors, and of course the experts in the field, whether it is RTOs or academy, to significantly increase the product and material circulation in the Nordic and Baltic Sea region. So this is our target areas where we are focused. On the right, you can see our partners put on a map. So you can see that it's quite concentrated. So there's a lot of collaboration ongoing between the different partners, and in many cases, the regions that we are dealing with, the companies come from that area as well. Maybe if you jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this can look a little bit complicated, but it really tries to put it in a nutshell what you can do with 10 million euros and 4 years. So it's quite extensive. These projects are typically structured into work packages. So this VP stands for work package, and you can see that there are different work packages all over. At the very bottom, you can see this VP1, which is focusing on framework analysis and actions to enhance circular economy. So it's kind of like a bottom of the pillar for us. And we have these interactions with all of the other work packages. Then in the red, you can see the systemic solutions box. So for us, how we defined this was that we took these stakeholder engagement demonstrations and key value demonstrations. So kind of the materials, key value chains, technologies, we need the people, the stakeholders are crucial. So for us, that was the way to structure it, and that's how they kind of came together. And for the stakeholder engagement demonstrations, the aim is to, through this VP2, kind of have these 5 different demonstrations related to consumers, citizens, communities, procurers, both public and private, then the industries, so B2B partnerships. And then also we have events involved, as they are quite good test bed, so to say, to pilot and demonstrate, because they are typically quite closed events, and it's easy to pilot and test things there. So all of these stakeholder engagement demonstrations are very closely linked to our key value chain demonstrations, where we do different kind of technical approaches. Then it flows very importantly into the exploitation, replication, and transferable practices. So how can we very efficiently make sure that these solutions are taken up? It doesn't make sense that everybody invents the wheel. Let's use the same one or tune it a little bit and drive forward. Then these cross-cutting issues that I think Davide, for example, mentioned. So sustainability assessment, communication, dissemination, coordination, they're a key part as well. So you do need different types of expertise, experiences in the project. Can you jump to the next one, please? Thank you. And then you can jump already to the next one. So the cities and regions involved in our project, they are represented in 2 different ways. So some are involved directly through the city or the region, and some are represented via cities or regions. You could call these kind of like development companies, but they're separate entities owned by the city or the region to really focus on these type of actions. So we have 4 cities or regions as directly involved. Viken is a county from Norway. Then Fredrikstad is a municipality from Norway, from the area of Viken County. Then we have Tartu and Tallinn from Estonia. And then we have EcoFellows, that is a company owned by the city of Tampere, local waste company, and a local energy company in that area, and represents the wider Pirkanmaa area, and specifically the city of Tampere. And Forum Helsinki is also importantly involved, and they are owned by the city of Helsinki. And I think Pekka was online from our project today, so you might, if you have specific questions for Forum Helsinki and their role, Pekka may be able to answer already. Then if you take the next slide, please. Thank you. I won't be going through all of the details about these counties and cities, but I wanted to include some basic background information, so maybe you guys can afterwards go back to it and read through that. Can you relate? Can you find things that are similar? Is it size-wise? Do you have focus on certain developments? Whatever. So I included that details, but I will just go through the actual role in the project. So Viken, the county, they lead work package 2 in the project. So the VP2 was about understanding the key stakeholders, incentives, and roles in circular economy transition. And here we have the stakeholder engagement demonstrations. So Viken has a quite large responsibility and important role in the project. And they are also actively participating in all of the 3 key value chain demonstrations. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So then we have Fredrikstad. They, like I said, it's a municipality in Viken area, and they are really industrially focused. There are a lot of industrial areas in the area. There are several sections from Fredrikstad Kommunen, so the community that are involved in the project. So they are involved from the culture, environment, and city development and technical operation perspective. And they are involved pretty much almost all work packages, but especially in the VP2 stakeholder engagement and citizens and communities demonstrations, and also in VP5, which is focused on bio-based site and waste stream utilization. And they have some responsibilities in the key value chain demonstration, so going to the technical side. Next slide, Pete, please. Thank you. So then Tartu, Within the project, they really focus on drawing up a regional circular economy action plan, and they are going to set up these community repair shops. So it's like a network of repair and fixing related places. And they will also deep dive into developing business models that they can, or the business model and the plan to ensure the sustainability of the repair shop and the continuation of it. And they will participate in development of solutions for the recovery of various currently unrecovered waste streams in their areas. Next slide, please. Thanks. So Tallinn, they have also quite a lot of many hats on the project, many roles. So they are actively participating as a partner city where the solutions are also developed and especially replicated. And Tallinn participates in the testing, analyzing, dissemination, communication activities with other project partners and stakeholders, but they really, for us, it's important to also do a lot of communication, dissemination in national languages. So for example, Tallinn has a bigger role there. And they lead a task, so these different roles again come up. You can be a work package leader, you can be a task leader. There are even sometimes subtasks that are organized. You can lead a subtask or be then just a contributor. So analyzing these local conditions for efficient replicability is of key importance. They also participate in VP1 where we do the framework activities relating to Tallinn. And they have an event called District Days, which is involved in the event demo. Next slide, please. Thanks. So then Eco Fellows, they focus on collaboration in the region and citizen engagement parts. And they lead in work package 2, this task 2.2, which is then the home base for the stakeholder engagement demonstrations. So they also have a very big role. They also are in charge of ethical issues in the projects, and they have 2 specific pilots and they participate in a 3rd one. Next slide, please. Yes, thanks. So Forum Helsinki, they have a very big role in leading work package 6. Their expertise in kind of this cross-border transnational activities is key with this work package. So they lead the work in replication and transferable practices, and they are responsible for the overall important output of our project, which is the replication handbook. They are also responsible for this enlightened consumer demonstration, which Pekka can tell you more about if you're interested. And they also have several different tasks that they're participating through the different work packages. Next slide, please. Thanks. So then some key takeaways and tips. So if you jump to the next one. These are some experiences from the proposal preparation phase. So the role of the project, the role for the project for you really depends on the interests and capabilities of your city or region. And I would like to say quite certainly that your role will be in the end very much defined based on your uniqueness and ambitions. If it is defined through these, then it's a natural role for you, which also translates to typically a good proposal. Some easy places for roles, they're easy to find in citizen community engagement and participation, and also in the policy development and recommendations. But furthermore, very importantly, implementation. I bolded this word because typically these research development innovation projects do generate policy recommendations, but it's in many cases it's not possible to do actual implementation because these type of actors are missing. So do take this as an advantage to really implement and test try these policy recommendations in the projects, because you have the possibility to do that. Then with good private sector connections in the industry and within the region, more concrete technical demonstrations can be made. So for example, in the Fredrikstad case, they had a very strong industrial park in the area, so they are very much involved in the technical work also through the For example, some of them are municipality owned, but then the private ones are connected to the project. Next slide, please. Yes, some cities and regions that we talked to during the formation of the proposal really came to the conclusion that they had limited resources. And these led to their decision not to participate in the project as a beneficiary. So this beneficiary is the kind of official term that's used for partner many times. So you might see the word partner pop up a little bit more. And I think there was a question in the chat that what kind of roles you can have in the project. If you, for example, are in a supportive role, I think the main difference is that you cannot then receive funding. So the beneficiary means that you're in the consortia and you apply for funding specifically. But this is, I think it's an important part to realize that do you have the resources, what kind of possibilities there are if you don't want to be a beneficiary. But anyhow, these discussions with the different cities and regions led for us to this stakeholder database, not maybe official term, but describes it well. So we have a list of interested cities and regions that have limited resources, but they have a lot of interest to learn and possibly adapt the validated and ready-made solutions. So do not discard these type of partners that you come across with, or these type of stakeholders that you come across with, because it's a really good resource for you to really be able to replicate and push your solutions further for exploitation. But like I said, it takes quite some time, resources to prepare for a good and successful project proposal. So really be prepared to be engaged and contribute as much as possible. And we discussed about the different roles a little bit here and there. Like I said, the VTT is the coordinator. It comes with quite a lot of responsibility and activities and to-dos, responsibilities for the management. So if you are planning to actually coordinate a proposal, it might be something that you think about. Make sure that you have a strong concept and are able to build the consortia, and that you have good support to implement these commissions, provisions, and manage all of the practicalities and sort of bureaucracy of proposals. But here, for example, the national contact points, Lydia, as a good example, can support. Next slide, please. So then what should you do when you're starting to develop your role in a consortia? As a first step, I would encourage everybody to identify your possible pain points and needs, as well as your ambitions, and conceptualize them very clearly. So prioritize also these concepts that you create, because you might end up with 10, but it's unlikely that all of those can be taken to the project. So if you have a top 3, for example, list that you really want to focus on, it's good use of your it's a good use of the funding money also, so that you can actually do something with the funding. If you spread the resources very thin, it doesn't really show well on the proposal either. But if you know very well that what you want to do, what are your needs and how does it relate to the big picture, this helps the consortium in the planning and planning of the whole project concept. What are the appropriate solutions and measures, and how will the proposal look like? So if you're very uncertain of everything, it will then take more time to put it together, and then typically there's a rush with proposals. So you may end up appreciating it in the end, that you had quite clear steps going in, what you want to do specifically. Then this Horizon Europe, but also the Horizon 2020 projects prior to this. But these research, development, and innovation projects related to circular economy are linked to certain key value chain streams. So do also identify which fields, sectors, and materials you are interested in, because then you can maybe find your position. There are a lot of these cross-cutting, cross-disciplinary things that can be done. For example, the stakeholder engagement demonstrations, they can be quite well fitted to pretty much anything. But for us, the project was started from the technical point of view and the materials, choosing the key value chains. So that might help you in also finding a suitable consortium. next slide, which I think is the final one. Yes, good, thank you. So then, third point from me as a key takeaway, also identify your personal resources available and your expertise. Try to answer who and how, and this links to both the actual project proposal preparation. So you can think of it as a project itself already to really put together a good proposal. But also what would happen if or when you get the funding? How are you able to carry out the work? With the funds that and the budget you have planned, are you able to hire somebody to support you carry out the work? So it is important that you figure these things out. And like I think it was mentioned earlier in the presentation, that it takes quite a lot of time and dedication. So it's good to be fully committed. Then contact your local, national research organizations, technology organizations, universities. They typically have the resources and also the capabilities, the experience to coordinate good proposals. Especially the research and technology organizations typically focus on these higher technology readiness level projects like Andrea mentioned. Maybe also these different type of cluster organizations can be good connection points. From our experience, from what we try to do, we try to begin at least 6 months prior to deadlines. Of course, then once they are officially published, the time is shorter. But be on the move as early as possible. There are a lot of things to be done. So one good tip is also to, once you have identified your wishes and hopes, needs for what you want to put in a proposal, contact these RTOs, send sort of an open letter, what you are interested in, what call specifically, and what is your input. But that's all from my side. Hopefully we reached the aims that I had at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Well, I would say the answer is yes, definitely yes. It's a good case study, is the one that you presented, and especially again with the way to keep going applying. If you also don't succeed first, then you have other possibility to apply. I don't know if there are really burning questions for Anna, but I guess we discussed in your presentation that was really only comprehensive. And what I suggest in trying to wrap up a little bit some key messages from this webinar, please don't consider them as a sort of Bible or as the only key messages from this webinar. I really suggest for those that didn't have time really to go the recordings, really try to listen all the presentation that they were just fantastic, and many thanks to all the speaker. Well, the key messages that I get is like, well, starting from your last one, be on the move as soon as possible. Now, the end of this call for the CCRI in the context of the CCRI is end of March, but it takes time, of course. If you second message is like invest in a clear vision, especially if you're supported by a political commitment, that's even better. Identify how an Horizon project can help you to implement this vision. It shouldn't be completely outside this vision if you really want to have the systemic approach that we really try to facilitate and implement in the CCRI. Assess your concrete competencies, resources, enter, if you can, in a good consortium, and especially be engaged, contribute as much as possible, but also if you're new in Horizon calls, if you don't have a lot of experience, well, try to play with others, learn from them, learn from the national contact points. We see how experience can be a national contact point in the case of the Spanish one, in India. If you are a small city or region, that's a clear message from Milan. I mean, don't give up at all. Join consortium, take the board together with other stakeholders, identify, and that's your message, Anna, identify pain points, needs, and ambition. What is your role in the consortium? Again, if you have a vision, should be consistent with it. Organize yourself internally. Christina explained how the organization was done there. Contact again national contact points like Lydia, and think how to get organized not only in the preparation but also try to have a sight a little bit beyond the application and try to see how you can get organized when the project, hopefully you'll be selected, will start. The implementation is just the application is just the start of the path or the journey, and then there is the implementation, which is the most exciting part, in my opinion. So that's a little bit to synthesize a little bit the key messages from the webinar. If there are no, again, burning questions, and we really want to finish on time, on 12:15, I really try to provide you with some logistical question, and please, Linnea, tell me if I forget something. So basically, the follow-up, the email for this event, we are using it for sharing with you the links, the presentation, and the recording of the webinar. Again, a big thank to all the speakers. You were just fantastic for your presentation. They were really useful, really concrete, and based on concrete experience. A big thanks, of course, also to all participants for your, I would say, great question, really. And of course, a big thanks also to my colleague, Linnea, especially that without you was just not possible to have this webinar. Annika from RTD, Davide from REA, basically everyone really that contributed, from Christina, Lydia, Anna, and I hope this webinar was useful for you as it was for us. And for more information on how to apply, etc., then in the chat we share the link again to the Commission and institution website where you can get further information and tips for your application. And good luck. So I guess with this one we can close the webinar, and thanks again. So we managed also to finish sort of on time. Thank you.